start learning with this one. Bi'ur ve'lo tashbit. So we learned lo tashbit last year. And lo tashbit basically explains what Chassidus is.
Where is it? Not here? Here.
Okay. Bi'ur ve'lo tashbit. Daled Amud Beis. You were in the right place. Why are you moving back to the other place? You're right here. Don't go anywhere. Bi'ur advarim al pasuk ve'lo tashbit. Okay. So we learned this last year. We learned the mimer called Lo Tashbit last year. The mimer itself, the Alter Rebbe said in 1804 or 5. And then about 7 or 8 years later, towards the end of his life, he gave a long explanation of it. Okay. The mimer itself talks about why Chassidus can be learned without understanding. That's one way of saying it. There's a lot of ways of saying what the Maimon wants to say. But it wants to say that Chassidus is the soul of Torah.
But if you don't understand, it's not called learning.
But there are certain things that, even if you don't understand, they're called learning. For instance, Mikra. And if a person just reads the psukim and he doesn't understand what he's reading, he's still Yotze Zayin.
We're learning, but it's not learning.
No, he's learning. He's Yotze Zayin, the mitzvah of learning Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Alter Rebbe argues that Chassidus is the same way. Okay? Which, by the Mekubalim, for instance, is that Zohar is the same way. Okay? Zohar you can learn without understanding, and it's called learning Torah.
That's why they read it.
Good, that's why they just read it. Of course, it's much more than that. Okay? But that mimer is about that in general, and why it's likened to salt. Why salt always has to be, and what it means that salt always has to be on the sacrifices and this and that. We're not going to get into it now.
Adds flavor.
In this mimer, he's going to explain the theory behind everything he said. And when he explains the theory behind what he said 6-7 years earlier, he goes into an amazing discussion of what is the nature of thought in general. What does thought mean? What does it mean to think? What's happening when we think? And particularly what he's interested in is what happens when we think Torah. What happens when we learn? So in a certain sense, this mimer of explaining what he said 7 years earlier, is a theory of Chassidus as Torah. What is Torah in general? What does it mean? Okay? So let's get straight into it. הנה בספר של בינונים, פרק ג' נתבאר בעניין הנפש שהיא כלולה מ10 בחינות כנגד 10 ספירות עליונות. There's the third chapter of Tanya says that the psyche is made out of 10 ספירות, 10 aspects. וכן בפרק י"ב נתבאר מהות ועצמות.
What is the word psyche? What do you mean by the word psyche?
Nephesh is psyche. That's how I translate Nephesh. וכן פרק י"ב נתבאר מהות ועצמות נפש האלוקית שהן 10 בחינותיהן. In chapter 12 it was explained, again he's writing this almost 10 years, 7 years after he published the Tanya. Okay? So he's saying what I wrote in chapter 3 and what I wrote in chapter 12 is that the psyche, its essence is the 10 sfirot, 10 aspects.
So what's the Nephesh Bahamis then?
Something else. In chapter 3 he says the Nefesh Bahamis also has 10 sfirot. Chapter 3 does. Chapter 12 is only about the Nefesh Lokis. But now he says, I couldn't write everything. Okay? So there are things missing there. Missing meaning they were left out. ולא נתבאר שגם החוכמה שהיא ראשית שב10 בחינות הנ"ל הוא רק בחינת כלי בלבד לעצמיות ומהות הנפש. And I didn't explain there that chokhmah, wisdom, which is the inception, the first of the 10 aspects, the 10 sfirot, is itself only a vessel for the essence of the psyche. Okay? Again, in the Tanya, if you just read Tanya, or you read many other Maimarim, you would hear that the 10 sfirot are the essence of the Nephesh. We already read in Torah Or, on page 13, column C. There's a mimer that begins Patach Eliyahu. It begins. We learned that a few months ago. We learned it again, I think. And there he says what's the difference between a garment, a levush, and a tachshit, and a jewelry or a precious gem? It says both of them you wear, but the difference is that the garment conceals and the gem gives off light, and that's supposed to reflect your inner self. And so the gem reveals, it's supposed to reveal you, it's supposed to show you off, whereas a garment is supposed to conceal you. So you can think about this as a person wearing a uniform. So the uniform makes them generic. Mm-hmm. They're like everybody else. It conceals who they are.
But it also says.
But you put the emblems and the signias and the medals and this and that. That's the jewelry of the garment, and that reveals how important this person is. He's a 4-star general. He's a 5-star general. He was in this battle, that battle, and everything else.
But a strimal and a kapot does the same thing.
The strimal is supposed to make you generic. Because everybody wears the same shtreimel. Yeah, I have one that's a little lighter than everybody else's. That's like jewelry. That shows me off.
No, a strimal shows that you're a Chabadnik, as opposed to a slob on the beach.
Okay. Means it makes you generic. You're this, you're not that.
So it's not concealing.
It takes away
it's not concealing,
from your...
it's revealing.
What?
It's not concealing, it's revealing.
No, it's concealing who you are. It's saying you're a generic part of some organization where there are no names. Maybe somebody has the numbers of everybody. Who are you? We don't know who you are. You're a Chabadnik. You're not a person. That's what it's meant to do. A uniform, that's what it's meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he says, what I didn't write there was that even wisdom, which is the highest of the 10 aspects, is not, you can't treat it as if it's touching or revealing the essence of the psyche. It's only a vessel. It's also concealing in a certain sense, but it's a vessel. The main thing about a vessel is that it's not the thing in and of itself. It's just something that contains it. It's the thing that you put your money in a box. The box is not the money. You can't sell the box for what the money is worth. Okay? The same thing. The wisdom is only a vessel. In the same way that the brain is only a vessel for what? For the power of intellect that's coming out of the psyche. The psyche here, you have to understand, not as the byproduct of the brain. You have to understand the psyche as something that exists outside of the brain. Okay? So some people would translate it soul. It makes them feel better.
Exist outside the brain?
Because it's not dependent on the brain. The brain's only a vessel. There could be certain vessels that without the vessel, the contents cannot exist. For instance, there's certain states of matter that if you don't have, like a plasma, if you don't have the right vessel, it'll disappear if you leave it out.
Goldfish in a goldfish bowl.
No, the goldfish will continue to exist. It just won't be alive. And I'm saying here is something that you won't be able to even have any contact with it. And you won't be able to have any contact with it at all. There are things like that. There's certain types of things that are the opposite. Like for instance, a very, very strong type of chumsa, of acid. Mm-hmm. What do you put it in? So there's a solution for these things. I think there's the strongest acid is something like pH 0.9 and 0.8, something ridiculous. But they have something that they put it in. But if they couldn't put it in something, it would disappear. It would find its way into the earth and disappear. You would never be able to see it. Okay. So the psyche exists outside of the brain. The brain is only a vessel for revealing it. In the same way, the power of intellect itself, which we just said is what is inside the vessel of the wisdom, the power of intellect itself is only a vessel for the essence and the psyche in and of itself. But you can never say that the power of intellect itself is the essence of the psyche. It's not. It's a vessel for it. The psyche is beyond definition. Or maybe not beyond definition, but it's beyond wisdom. It's beyond these vessels. How do we know this? We know this because he says, here's a simple example. Simple thought experiment. Because the power of intellect fluctuates in a person. It's not always the same. Sometimes a person has a clear intellect, and sometimes he doesn't. Even it's so much so that if he drinks enough, we'll talk nonsense.
But the drinking has changed his intellect.
It's changed the vessel, hasn't changed the intellect. The intellect is still there, but it's not clearly there anymore. Why? Because the intellect, the power of intellect. Again, you can say that it's changed the vessel of the power of intellect. It certainly has changed the vessel of the brain. Okay? That's certainly changed. So these vessels, they change. They're prone to the world of changes. But when we say about the Nephesh, is that the Nephesh is unchanging. The true meaning of Nephesh, the true meaning of Psyche, and that's why the Greek word is not so great, is because the Psyche is like a soul. It's what's beyond the material world. So it's not affected by the material world. It shouldn't be affected by changes. Therefore you can't say that the mind, the power of intellect, is the Nephesh itself, is the Psyche itself. And that all that the Psyche is just these 10 sfirot that are the mind and the emotions. You can't even say, you can't even say that the Psyche is one thing, and the thing that it is the power of intellect. But that this also doesn't work. But that the power of intellect is just a vessel. Okay, it happens to be that the vessel is the same thing as the light. And in this case, that's what he's saying. You can't even say that, right? There's a whole question: what is the soul? What is the psyche? How do you define it? So in Greece, what did they want to define it as? And throughout the scholastic period, the Middle Ages, what did they think? They thought that the psyche was the power of intellect. That's what people thought about it. Right? That's how people defined it. He says you can't say that, because the power of intellect is just a vessel for the psyche, for the soul. So, even if you would talk not about the power of intellect, let's put the power of intellect aside. There's a higher force we know in the psyche. What's it called? Will. Ratzon. Which is above the power of intellect. Moshe Rabbeinu saw Rabbi Akiva, his greatness in Torah, and what his end was. He said to Hashem, this is Torah and this is its reward. Hashem said to him, be quiet. This is what came up in my will. This is what I want. So you see from there that there's this state of en tam laratzon. There's no maybe here it's talking about tam kamus laratzon, like tanug. But this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted, which is even higher than the regular will. In any case, even that, gam ken nikra karkafta, or galgalta dechafi al mocha, shu gam ken b'chinat kli. Even these are called the tikkunim, the engarments of arichanpin, of mochastima, and even that is only a vessel for the psyche. The psyche is beyond definition. Everything we said about Hashem, you can also say about the psyche. The psyche is not supposed to be changing because of its interaction with the physical world. It's supposed to be beyond the physical world. The soul is beyond. And now he says in parentheses, this is probably the Tzemach Tzedek adding this, for this reason we see that the vessel continues to grow as a person grows up, right? Even the will changes. The baby doesn't want anything.
The vessel grows or the intellect?
The vessel, the psyche doesn't change, as it were. That's why we said there's identity here. The identity between when I was a baby and when I am today is an identity. It's true. Why? If you would say it's my body that's giving me my identity, but my body's changed so much in the last 50 years, it's not the same body. How can you say I'm me? No. We said that there's a general identity called the psyche, the soul, and that has not changed. That has only received bigger and wider and more complex vessels to express itself through. So that's what we see in the baby, that it goes and grows. His brain is very small, his power of intellect is very small. And as he grows older, his power of intellect increases, and therefore his mind and his emotions increase. And the Mishnah says, "V'ziknei talmidei chachamim, kol ma shemazkinim da'atan mityashevet alein," that the elders of the sages, as they grow older, their das, meaning their consciousness, becomes more complacent, more mityashevet is like saying he has more yeshuva dat, is like saying that he's more calm in a certain way. His thinking gets better. My son asked me yesterday, why is it that chess is that all the grandmasters are young, and as they grow older they lose it. There's no grandmasters anymore over the age of 40. I mean, they're grandmasters, but like Kasparov, who used to be number one 20 years ago, he's like ranked, I don't know, 50 now, something like that in the world. What happened? And the guys who are number one, Magnus Carlsen and this guy, all these guys are very young. They're in their 20s. I said that chess and mathematics are very similar. And it goes by bursts of insight. Okay? That's not Yeshuva Dat.
So what happens when people get very old, when they get Alzheimer's,
that's something much worse.
No, but so the psyche is not always growing. The Kli is not always growing.
It is. By a Talmud Chacham, it's always getting better. Why? Because of this thing called Yeshuva Dat. That's exactly the difference. In Torah, you're not more brilliant as when you were younger. Maybe you had more ideas, but you don't understand better. The increase in understanding, in das, in consciousness of Hashem, comes from this experience of becoming older. The mind becomes a better and better vessel for the Torah that you learn. You may not remember as much, but it doesn't matter anymore, because the mind has been formed in a certain way already. The brain has been, I guess, the connections, whatever it is, I don't know what it is. But the vessel becomes better. That's why they're likened to wine. They're not likened to vinegar. I don't know. They don't go bad. As they get older, they get better. And that doesn't happen in mathematics. It doesn't happen in... It might happen in poetry, by the way. I'm not sure poetry is not the same way. That as you get older, you write better. Even though you may not remember as many words. So there are certain areas in which the mind continues to improve. Anything that has to do with Torah, and probably with language, it gets better and better. But with mathematics, it's bursts. So in a certain sense, it's a difference between Torah and everything else, because the Torah is really linguistic. Okay, in any case. So anyway, all this shows, and the soul was in the person when he was a baby. So why, when he was a baby, was he not able to do everything that he does as an older person? Why was his mind small? But the meaning is that the soul is above the intellect, it's above the brain. The soul is outside the physical world. What we call the power of intellect, which again he just said before is Gulgalta, that's the name in Kabbalah. The intellect is just one of the powers of the soul that comes out, extends out of it. And we already know that extending means mitpashet, we learned in Torah, or mitpashet means that it changes. Okay? It's a changing force. When something extends, it means it's in a state of change. Okay? And because it's in a state of change, so the intellect changes. It fluctuates even within my life right now, and it certainly fluctuated from when I was younger to how I am today. והשכל הוא כוח המתפשט ממנו, כדי שיהיה נמשך המשכה והתפשטות זה לגילוי, וכשיש כלי להכיל. And anything that is changing needs to have some kind of vessel. And the vessel in this case, as we said, is chokhmah, is wisdom, or the brain, or however you will call it. The brain, which is a vessel for the power of intellect. And the power of intellect itself, we said, is a vessel. It's not a vessel, it's a power that extends from the soul, but it's a vessel for the soul in that sense, for the psyche. And that he says, this whole long definition, he says, I didn't write in the Tanya. Because you couldn't write it, and it was not nogea la'inyan. It wasn't part of the discussion anyway. I had to give a short explanation that the psyche contains 10 powers. But I didn't mean to say that these 10 powers, these 10 sfirot, are the essence of the psyche. אזי הכלי הוא ממשיך תוכו גילוי אור וכוח השכל, ובקטן מצד קטנות מוחו, השכל מאיר בקטנות מאוד, והנשמה עצמה מלובשת בו גם מקטנותו ותחילת התהוותו. The soul is always there, regardless of the fluctuations, the increase or the decrease in the power of the intellect. So, what is this? What is the essence of the psyche? What is the essence of the soul? The essence of the soul, of the psyche, is that it's a part of God. And God is not defined by the 10 sfirot. He's not the 10 sfirot. These are only vessels that he uses, ways in which he extends, meaning he enters into the changing world. And they have no, and God himself has no definition, no gadir, no borders, meaning no limits. It's just simple light, and the soul is the same way. It's not to say that the soul is God. That also he's not saying. But it's a part of God. And to that he devoted chapter 2 of the Tanya to explain what he means by part of. Because how could God be parcelized? You can't do that. So what do we mean by the word part? And again, this is because it's a verse in the Bible that says Chelek Eloka Mima'al. That's a part of God above. Okay, so that really this should be a full stop here. I don't know why they divided it this way. It's a mistake. Now he gets into a sugya. This is a very important historical sugya that we've talked about. The debate and which turned ugly at times between Kabbalah and philosophy. Okay? Strangely enough, the solution came from Kabbalah itself. And I've said before, I don't know why there was a debate in the first place.
Jewish philosophy?
Again, Jewish philosophy. Rambam. Kabbalah claims something different than Jewish philosophy. Jewish philosophy was very much influenced by Greek philosophy. But you can't say that it's Greek philosophy, it's not the same thing. It's influenced by it, meaning they ask the same questions. Some of the answers are the same, a lot of the answers are not the same. And the most famous one is that by the Greeks, the world is primordial. It's always been there, kadmon. Okay? And God is also kadmon. And by Jewish philosophy, there can be only one kadmon. Hashem is kadmon, God is primordial, the world isn't. The world is created. There was a lot of, Rambam says, why do I say something different than Aristotle on this matter? Because the Torah seems to say something different. Or, more importantly, I don't have conclusive proof that Aristotle is right. If I had conclusive proof, I would have to reinterpret the Torah in such a way that it would agree with the fact that the world is primordial. So, luckily, he didn't find conclusive proof. Very happy that he didn't. But that's his. You can't know about the Rambam when he's writing whether it's a not rhetorical, but it's an argumentative device that he's saying I would have accepted it, that the world is primordial, or he's just saying it in order to win points. Not whether he really believes in it or whether it's an argument that he's doing to win points. And to win points in the world of scholasticism meant that you didn't go against Aristotle unless you had to. So I don't know what the Rambam would have said if somebody would have brought conclusive proof that Aristotle's right. Would he really have reinterpreted the Torah? It's hard to take him at face value. It's very hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. Anybody who knows, like the Rambam's, again, the rationalists will say, of course he would have changed. He would have reinterpreted the Torah. I doubt it, but I don't have conclusive proof. We can't ask him. We don't know. In any case, Jewish philosophy came up with a certain idea, a certain conception of what God is. Kabbalah has a completely different idea. Why? Because as we know, the world always becomes more frum. So, if the Jewish philosophers said A, so in a certain sense, Kabbalah said frum A. Like, A is not enough. You have to go further. The truth is that wasn't Kabbalah. That was like philosophers who knew Kabbalah. When the Arizal came along, his real answer was, the philosophers are right to a certain point. From there on, you have to say something different. Meaning, it's like physics. It's not that Newtonian mechanics are wrong. It's just that they're only relevant to things that move slow and are pretty heavy. But the moment you get into things that move really fast and they're really light, they have no mass or very little mass, now you have to get into quantum mechanics. It's not that Newtonian mechanics are not enough. The Arizal did something very similar. He said, it's not that the philosophers were wrong. They were talking only up to the world of Atzilus. Beyond the Atzilus and Adam Kadmon, primordial man, all these levels that are higher than Atzilus and emanation, they're Kol HaKavod, you have to use a different language already. You can't say the same thing. That's real Kabbalah. Now, in the middle, there was, like, again, I don't want to say pseudo Kabbalah because it's not fair, because there was Kabbalah before the Arizal, but it wasn't the same mindset. It was more trying to use philosophical language to describe Kabbalistic concepts, and that doesn't work too well. So you get into problems. Again, it's like trying to use Newtonian mechanics to describe an electron. It doesn't work, and at some point you come and say in your frustration, Newtonian mechanics is wrong. It's not wrong. You don't mean that it's wrong. You just mean it's not good for my application. I can't use it the right way. I wonder if my examples are useful, because if you haven't been through that frustration trying to explain how an electron behaves using the Newtonian mechanics, you might not get it.
I didn't get deeply involved in
but I'll say it this way.
Mechanics, but I basically understand.
I'll say it this way. It's like a guy who has in the kitchen.
I got very much involved in Einstein's
relativity
with the wave or what's it called?
Particle.
Particles.
Okay, so I'll say it in different in the kitchen, okay, which is simple. There's a guy who has a microwave, and there's a guy who has a burner. Okay, so you bring a professional chef, and you say all you can use is a microwave. So he'll try in the beginning. But after a few minutes, he'll go like, what is this thing? It doesn't work. It doesn't do what I need. I need the burners. I need to see the flame. I need to get it right. I need to get it exact. Again, there's no way you can control this microwave thing. It doesn't do it the right way. So in your frustration, you might say the microwave's broken. It doesn't work. It's not. Toss it out. Throw it into the garbage. I don't have anything to do with it. Something like that was done by the early Kabbalists. That when they read the Rambam, when they read Maimonides, when they read philosophy, Jewish philosophy, and when they came to defining Hashem, to defining aspects of God, they wanted to toss it out. In fact, they did, physically. It became pretty ugly. Is it just frustration? Is it frumkeit? I don't know what it was. What's really troubling about and I don't know what the answer is that the Arizal's writings were already available when this happened. And I've never figured out why they didn't use it. Did they think the Arizal was treif? I don't know. It's really weird. When this happened,
have an inherent dislike of something new.
The Arizal spread like wildfire. The moment people got their hands on it, they realized what an incredible, true revolution in thinking this was. It spread around the world in the speed I don't think anything ever spread that fast. The problem was getting your hands on it. But once you got your hands on it, there were so many copies made. I think it was the most copied manuscript ever. And again, there was multiple manuscripts with multiple editorial problems, and still it spread. And it spread because anybody who read it understood how important this was and how revolutionary it was in thinking. And thinking about God, thinking about the world, thinking about Torah, thinking about everything. It was just an incredible system. So, it's sort of like quantum mechanics. The moment people got their hands on it, it just spread like wildfire. Every physicist understood it within a week. They had to, because it was such a good language for describing things. It was so revolutionary because in the beginning it's hard to wrap your head around it. But once you do, to some extent at least, you get comfortable speaking the language, things begin to fall into place and you're just amazed by how good it is. How good a model for explaining things it is. And that's what happened. So now he quotes from the person who made the biggest shturim. Not officially wasn't him, it was his brother. But again, I have no idea. Maybe I don't know enough, but I have no idea why the Maharal and his brother didn't learn the Arizal. Or if they did, it doesn't show. And they were the ones who really went against the Rambam. So here he's giving, we saw this.
Where was the Maharal in relation to the Arizal in time?
A few years after him. The Arizal's writings were in Europe already. In fact, they spread to Europe before they spread in the Middle East. Because he had sent his student, Rabbi Israel Srug, to Europe. And he went to Italy, to Frankfurt, I think, and other places, and he taught. And so the Arizal system was known very early. Anyway, the Maharal has his own language, and he uses like Kabbalistic philosophical language. He doesn't use the Arizal language, which means that either he didn't see it, or he didn't want to use it. I don't know what the...
So where was the Maharal vis-a-vis the Rambam?
It's much after, but he's...
No, against? For?
No, he's against the Rambam. And now we'll see what was the source of this dispute. וכן כתב הגאון מהר"ל מפראג, זכר צדיק לברכה בהקדמתו לספר גבורות השם, דף ג' עמוד ג', וזה לשונו. So in his introduction to one of his most important works, Gvurot Hashem, which is about the Exodus from Egypt, so it's even timely, the Maharal writes like this. What does he write? He writes, V'ulai omru, right, we're on page 18. Sorry, I'm on page 18. אם אין עצמותו שכל וגשם, חס ושלום, לומר עליו, אם כן, מהו יתברך? If he is not his essence, meaning God's essence, God in and of himself, is not mind, and it's not matter. It's neither mind nor matter. So who is God? He's not mind and he's not matter. He's not spiritual, he's not physical. So what is he? Nashiv lehem. So they will ask us this question. Who will ask us this question? The philosophers. The philosophers have to have a definition. What was their definition? We said that in Greek philosophy, the psyche and God are sechel. Okay? They're like mind. They're intellect. That's their understanding. So, if he's not mind and he's not matter, so what is he? Because they all agreed that he wasn't matter. They're not pagans. They're not pantheists. They're something else. They're transcendentalists. They think that God is beyond matter. So what is he? He's mind. But now if you told me he's not mind and he's not matter, what's left? Nashiv lehem, says the Maharal, will answer them, you're asking me to define something? Can we define everything? For instance, can we define the soul that is in the body? Can a person define his own soul? Can he say what it is? No. No person knows how to define his own soul. So much so that the materialists will say, there is no soul. It can't be defined. There's no soul. It's just a byproduct of a lot of chemical interactions. And you think that there is a soul. Kol sheken v'kol sheken boreh hakol. All the more so the creator of everything. She'en lish'ol alav kushiyah zot. You can't ask about him this question. Ki lo irani adam v'chai ad kan l'shono. Because man cannot see me. And by see me we mean understand or fathom. And so there's no question. No, he's not mind.
This is all the Maharal's comments?
Right.
Why is the Alter Rebbe quoting the Maharal?
Because he's saying the same thing that he just said. That the neshama is all pashut. That the neshama is something simple. He's not interested so much in the question about God. He's more interested in the question about the soul. He's just using this because it was the same question. The Maharal says, in the same way that you can't define the soul, you can't define the psyche, you cannot define God. And there's no need to. Don't get hung up by the fact that you don't have a definition. Why do you need a definition? Your need for a definition is the problem. So we see, at least from the Maharal, that he argues that the soul, the psyche, is above the power of intellect. That's what we just said. But you also have to understand that the same is true of God. There's no definition. So God is above the 10 sfirot. In the same way that the psyche, the soul, is above the 10 faculties, from wisdom to kingdom, so God is above the 10 sfirot. He's not the 10 sfirot. His essence is not the 10 sfirot. These are just ways in which he expresses himself. They're not him. Okay? In the same way that when it says, let us make God in our image, it's talking about the soul. The soul is in the image of God.
Let us make man in our image.
Okay, yeah, let us make man in our image. What is it talking about in our image? Here it's talking about the soul.
So it's talking about the Esespheros. I thought it was talking about the Esespheros.
Again, the Esespheros is by Hashem. The neshama is by the person. It's the same thing. Hashem is to the Esespheros the way the neshama is to its faculties, power of intellect, and so on. Doesn't matter what. It's not defined by them. It only uses them.
We'll finish tomorrow. We'll continue tomorrow.
Okay, so hold this in mind. So,
which mind?
In the mind that is expressed in the world, you have to keep remembering this.
But I don't see that I'm learning Torah any more depth and understanding because I'm older.
You would not be able to sit with me 20 years ago.
Why?
Because you wouldn't. First of all, because I didn't know what I know now.
Why?
Because
I didn't know anything 20 years ago. I mean, I did know something. The only difference between my intellect now and 20 years ago is that
you're more patient. You're willing to sustain incomprehension for much, much longer. You're willing to let things fall into place now.
That's why I didn't then.
Because the nature of a younger person is that he has less patience.
You're younger than me.
I, 20 years ago, had no patience to read this either.
What time are we learning tomorrow? What day is it tomorrow? What day is it tomorrow? What day is it tomorrow? Beis Nisan.
You're going to what?
Swim.
Swim. So we're learning at 9.
Cool.
Okay.
Good.
Let's say.
I'll call you.